Welcome to Hearth and Home Nostalgia. It is time to take a trip down the nostalgia road, and we are going to be talking today about meatloaf. Some of you will see this and it will make your mouth water. Others of you, like myself, are not that into meatloaf. My husband really likes meatloaf and he can make it really good. And it was a big 1950s food, so we have to talk about it here. Now, meatloaf is a dish of ground beef or meat that has been combined with other ingredients and formed into the shape of a loaf, kind of like a bread loaf, then baked or smoked. Okay, that's according to Encyclopedia. I have never had smoked meatloaf. Have you? I know some of you, the guys are like, they'll just smoke everything. And they taste really good. But have you ever smoked meatloaf? The final shape is either formed on a baking tray or pan formed into like a loaf pan. And it's usually made, they have ground beef, ground lamb, pork, veal, venison, or poultry or seafood. Seafood. I don't know. Seafood. What kind of meatloaf do you have with seafood? It would be called like sea loaf, right? I mean, should we start something? What would you put in it? Like a big salmon loaf? I guess you could have a salmon loaf. Let me know if you've had like a big trout loaf. And if somebody served you a big trout loaf, or maybe tuna fish loaf? I don't know. Now, vegetarian adaptations are of meatloaf, like this imitation meat, or like I have done things like that because we are kosher. And so sometimes it's hard to find that really good kosher meat near us. And so we will have the fake meat. There's all different ones out there. And some are hit and miss, and some you're like, oh, I can tell that it's not meat. And then others you're like, okay, this would fool me. They get better and then they get worse and they get better again. Have you tried any that are good? Let me know in the comments. The cooked meatloaf can be sliced like a loaf of bread to make individual portions. It can easily become dry, therefore various techniques exist to keep the dish moist, like mixing in breadcrumbs and eggs. I always thought mixing in the breadcrumb was more of like a way to make the meat stretch. I always thought it was like, we don't have that much money for like a ton of meat, so this would be a way to make it stretch, but it also makes it moist. And then you can cover it with sauce. I don't know. I don't like a lot of sauce. This is too much. Now, wrapping it or using moisture enhancing ingredients in the mixture, such as filling it with fatty meats, rich cheeses or vegetables. Now, if I had the fake meat, I could add the cheeses, but I would not add cheese to meat. What about you guys? Okay, so let's go back and learn a little bit more here. Now, the history is meatloaf of minced meat was mentioned in Roman cookery collection Abacus as early as the 5th century. And Abacus made a killer meatloaf. Meatloaf is a traditional German, Scandinavian, and Belgian dish, but I tend to think of it associated with the 1950s. And it is a cousin to the Dutch meatball. So at reunions, there's a Dutch meatball on one side of the room, and then there's the meatloaf, and they get together, and they have a family reunion. American meatloaf has its origin in scrapple, a mixture of ground pork and cornmeal served by German Americans in Pennsylvania since colonial times. Have you guys ever had scrapple? I'd like a kosher version of scrapple. We should all have a scrapple night. Meatloaf in the contemporary American sense did not appear in cookbooks until the late 19th century. In Jewish cuisine, Ashkenazi Jewish cuisine, meatloaf is called klops. If I say it right, I should know. And it can be served cold or hot. It is sometimes filled with whole boiled eggs. The name presumably comes from German klops, meatball. And then all the different countries have their version of meatloaf. Poland has the Roman roast or klops and is made of ground pork, beef, onions, and garlic with the hard-boiled eggs. So you see that connection to the Jewish one as well. And in the UK, there are regional pork meatloaf dishes known as haslets, which can be eaten hot or cold. I don't know, would you have a cold meatloaf? I'm not sure if I would have a cold meatloaf. I like cold pizza, but I don't want cold meatloaf. What about you? Now, during the Great Depression in America, cooking meatloaf was a way for families to stretch by using an inexpensive type of meat and leftover ingredients to cook for their pets. Along with spices, it was popular to add cereal, grains, bread, or even saltine crackers to the meatloaf to add bulk and stretch the meat. This tradition of addition still lives on, but with new goals, primarily producing a lower fat dish with superior binding and consistency, according to the encyclopedia. Now, American-style meatloaf is typically eaten with a sauce or relish, often applied before cooking. Many recipes call for a tomato sauce to be poured over the loaf, which forms a crust during baking. A simple brown or onion gravy or a can of cream of mushroom soup can be a substitute for the tomato-based ketchup. Or a mixture of ketchup and prepared mustard may also be used. This style of meatloaf may be topped with a meatloaf sauce consisting of ketchup and brown sugar. Another variety of meatloaf style is prepared by frosting the loaf with mashed potatoes, drizzling a small amount of butter over the top, and browning it in the oven. Yeah. American-style meatloaf is normally served warm as a part of the main course, but it can also be sliced as a cold cut and then used in sandwiches. Have you ever had a meatloaf sandwich? I'm not sure if I would like that. Would you guys like that? Maybe on a big Kaiser roll or something? This dish can be considered a typical comfort food in the United States, and it's served in many diners and restaurants. And in a 2007 poll by Good Housekeeping, meatloaf was a 7th favorite dish of Americans. What about you guys? Do you like meatloaf? Let me know your thoughts about meatloaf in the comments. Your experiences, would you make it today? Did your parents make you eat it? We're so glad to have you. If you enjoyed the show, please click the like button. Also, make sure that you're subscribed to our channel. I'm trying to learn everything about nostalgia. I'm studying old films, old radio, and I really need your help because I learn by hearing. So the more you share with me and pass these stories on, the more I can pass these stories on to my children and to share it here on our YouTube community. We're so glad you're a part of our community. Click the bell notification so you always get a notice when we go live, because we go live a lot on our channel. And if you like it, please click the like, because it helps so much to get the word out about our channel of old time radio and antiquing and nostalgia and history. Thank you for joining us today.